The session is now called to order. Everyone is requested to rise for the singing of the national anthem.
Bayang magiliw, perlas ng silanganan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, buyan ka ng magiging, sa manlulupit, di ka masisingil, sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong paghaw, may nilang ang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal, ang kisap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagdidinig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may magdidilig, lupa ng araw ng walaming pagsinta, buhay ay langit sa ating ko, aming ligaya na pag may mga aking pagkamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Please remain standing for a minute of silent prayer and meditation. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we defer the calling of the roll.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I move that we approve the journal number 63 that has been distributed to our desks.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion is approved.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we now proceed with the reference of business and request that the Secretary General be directed to read the titles of the bills and resolutions on first reading, as well as communications and community reports.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion is approved. The Secretary General is so directed.
Reference of business, bills on first reading. House Bill 4816, granting amnesty on unpaid estate taxes for taxable year 2016, Representative Romero.
Committee on Ways and Means.
House Bill 4817 and 4818, establishing national high schools in certain barangays of Davao City, Representative Ungab.
Basic Education.
House Bill 4819, mandating the institutionalization of a one-stop government shop for all Filipino workers, Representative Gatchalian.
Labor and Employment.
House Bill 4820, extending the franchise granted to Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines, Inc., Representative Salceda.
Franchises.
House Bill 4821, creating an agricultural pension fund to provide pension benefits to farmers and fisherfolk, Representative Antonio.
Agriculture.
House Bill 4822, expanding the scope of acts constituting sexual harassment, Representative Antonio.
Women.
House Bill 4823, converting the provincial roads in Cebu Province into national roads, Representative Salimbangon and Dorado.
Public Works.
House Bill 4824, increasing the bed capacity of St. Anthony Mother and Child Hospital in Cebu City, Representative Villanosa.
Health.
House Bill 4825, promoting quality higher education, Representative Cuba.
Higher Ed.
Message from the Senate. Message dated January 23, informing the House and Senate to mandate pass Senate Bill 1269, in which it requests the concurrence of the House.
To the Committee on Civil Service. Majority Leader.
I move that we suspend.
Session suspend.
And wait.
Session is resumed.
Mr. Speaker,
Majority Leader,
I move that we call the roll of members.
the Secretary is directed to call the roll of members.
Roll call of members, honorable representatives. Abad, Abaya, Abayon, Abellanosa, Abu, Abueg, Acharon, Akop, Acosta, Acosta Alba, Adjong, Adbingkula, Agrao, Agabaw, Aglipay Bilyar, Albano, Alcala, Alejano, Almario, Almonte, Alonte Nagiat, Alvarez Franz, Alvarez Mercedes, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amante, Amatong, Andaya, Angara Castillo, Antonino, Antonio, Aragones, Arbizon, Arcillas, Arenas, Atienza, Aumentado, Bagaw, Bagaching, Bagilat, Banal, Barbers, Barsaga, Batawil, Batucabe, Bautista Bandigan, Belaro, Belmonte Feliciano, Belmonte Jose Christopher, Belmonte Ricardo, Benitez, Bernos, Bertiz, Biason, Billones, Biron, Bulilia, Bundok, Bordado, Bravo Anthony, Bravo Maribida, Brosas, Bulot Bigtang, Cagas, Calderon, Calixto Rubiano, Caminero, Campos, Canama, Cari, Casilaw, Castelo, Castro Franz, Castro Fredenil, Catamco, Cayetano, Celeste, Serafica, Cirilles, Chavez, Chipeco, Cuanco, Culliantes, Cortés, Cortuna, Cosalan, Crisólogo, Cuba, Cuaresma, Cueva, Dalipe, Dalog, Daza, De Jesus, De Venecia, De Vera, Defensor, Del Mar, Del Rosario, De Losa Montalia, Di Maporo Abdullah, Di Maporo Khalid, Duwabit, Durano, Di, Ilago, Enverga, Erice, Erigel, Ermita Buhain, Escudero, Espina, Espino, Estrella, Eusebio, Ibardone, Fariñas, Fernando, Ferrer Juliet, Ferrer Luis, Ferriol, Floirendo, Flores, Fortuno, Ventebella, Garbin, Garcia Gwendolyn, Garcia Jose, Garcia Albano, Gary Richard, Gary Sharon, Gasataya, Gatchalian, Heron, Guana Cristina, Gomart, Gomez, Gonzaga, Gonzales Alexandria, Gonzales Aurelio Dong, Gonzales Fernando, Goriseta, Gulyas, Hernandez, Herrera D, Hopper, Alusos, Javier, Konghun, Labad-Labad, Lacson, Lagman, Lanete, Laugan, Lasatin, Liachon, Lee, Lim Kay Chong, Lobrigat, Lopez Benhur, Lopez Carlo, Lopez Manuel, Loyola, Macapagal-Arroyo, Maceda, Madrona, Malapitan, Manalo, Mangawang, Mangodadato Suarto, Mangodadato Sajid, Marcoleta, Marcos, Mariño, Marquez, Martinez, Matugas, Miliana, Mending, Mendoza, Mercado, Mirasol, Montoro, Nava, Nieto, Noel, Nograles Jericho, Nograles Carlo, Nolasco, Nunez Maliñaon, Waminal, Ocampo, Olivares, Ong Edwin, Ong Henry, Ortega Pablo, Ortega Vini, Pacquiao, Paduano, Palma, Pancho, Panganiban, Panotes, Papandayan, Pichay, Pimentel, Pineda, Plaza, Primicia Sagabas, Kimbo, Radasa, Ramirez-Sato, Ramos, Relampagos, Revilla, Roa Puno, Robes, Rocamora, Rodriguez Isidro, Rodriguez Maximo, Roman, Romero, Romualdez, Romualdo, Roque Hari, Roque Rogelio, Sakdalan, Sagarbaria, Sahali, Salceda, Salimbangon, Salo, Salon, Sambar, Sandoval, Santos Recto, Sarmiento Cesar, Sarmiento Edgar, Sabiliano, Sema, Xiao, Silverio, Singson, Swansing Estrelita, Swansing Horacio, Suarez, si Alvarado, Tambunting, Tan Angelina, Tan Milagrosa, Tan Shirley, Tejada, Teves, Chanco, Ting, Tino, Tolentino, Treñas, Tugna, Tupas, Turabi Nataman, T, Umali, Unabia, Ungab, Unigo, Uy Juliet, Uy Rolando, Uy Barreta, Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Vilarde, Velasco, Velasco Catera, Veloso, Vergara, Villapuerte, Villanueva, Villarasa Suarez, Villarica, Villarin, Villago, Yap Artur, Yap Melesio, Yap Victor, Yu, Zamora Mar Carmen, Zamora Ronaldo, Sarate, Subiri. Mr. Speaker, the roll call shows that 224 members responded to the call.
Mr. Speaker,
With 224 members responding to the call, the chair declares the presence of a quorum.
Mr. Speaker,
Majority Leader.
I move that we recognize the gentleman from Buhay Party List, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Lito Atienza is recognized.
thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Ikaw nga muna, Art.
We are questioning the count just announced by the Secretariat. We do not have that many members on the floor. Our count amounts to only 152 at this point. We don't want any inaccurate count of the presence of our members since we are going to discuss very important matters this afternoon. Ang iniingi ko po sa kanila, ulitin ninyo sapagkat mali ang bilang ninyo at huwag ninyong uuliting mali sapagkat alam namin ang totoo.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, with all due respect to the gentleman, the count of the Secretariat of the roll call is given the highest presumption of regularity because after all, under the rules, it is the only count. And in the previous Congresses, Mr. Speaker, we have this precedent, Mr. Speaker, that those who are present in the plenary hall as well as those in the vicinity of the session hall are counted in the roll call, Mr. Speaker. So
Mr. Speaker,
Please let the Majority Leader finish. Yes,
that is
thought
all,
he was
Mr.
finished.
Speaker. That the roll call should be given the presumption of regularity and that the chair has already declared the existence of a quorum.
Mr. Speaker,
the Chair has already ruled the
Mr.
presence
Speaker,
of a quorum.
we want to be heard and to be placed on record that although we respect the count of the Secretariat, what we are pointing out is a very serious flaw. 250 is very different from 152. Yan po'y aming kini-question, and since we are questioning it now, we are definitely asking for a recount. Masama po ba yun? Meron po ba kayong itinatago na hindi nyo gustong mabilad? Sabihin natin kung ilan po ang mga miyembro nandito ngayon at yun po ang ating gawing pagbasihan ng quorum. We
The
are
Chair
questioning.
has already declared the presence of a quorum.
Then we are
Unless the gentleman is raising a point of order, please state it correctly, but the Chair stands by the ruling.
Yes, we are raising a point of order because the count of the Secretariat is inaccurate. If we do a head count now, I will be proven right. we only have 152 on the floor and not 230 plus as they've announced. Ito pong lahat ng pag-uusapan natin magiging illegal pag ipinilit po ninyo na tayo'y magpulong nang wala pong quorum according to the truth and the reality. The pronouncement of the Secretariat we would like to honor. But since it's way, way off reality and the truth, then we are questioning it.
The point of order has been listened to and has been recorded. The chair stands by its ruling. The point of order is out of order. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we cannot take the decision of being declared out of order. We are in order. So we are appealing the decision of the chair. Pagbigyan po naman ninyo na pag-umpisa ng ating sesyon, ilagay natin sa tama. Hindi po
There
natin
is
dadaanin ito.
do I take it to mean, Congressman Atienza, that the representation is appealing the decision of the chair?
Yes, we are appealing, doubly appealing, that we stay on the truth, on the side of truth, and not to make up a quorum where there is none.
Pursuant to the rules, there is an appeal to the ruling of the chair. Then it is a matter that we now bring to the plenary. There is an appeal being raised. Let me state the matter for the plenary's decision. There is an appeal on the declaration of a quorum. Sufficient grounds have been stated, including tradition and our rules, why the quorum has been duly satisfied. There is an appeal. As to all those in favor of the appeal, meaning that there is no quorum, please say aye.
Aye.
As to those opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
The nays have it. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Speaker,
I move that
I just
we
want to
take
point
up...
out, and I would like to manifest, that our recorders will make a report on this. I don't care if you insist and you defeat my motion. We will continue to question the validity and the legality of this session that we're holding without a quorum. Salamat po.
Thank you very much. That's duly noted. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we take up bills on second reading.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker,
Any objection?
Mr. Speaker,
Yes.
I'm-
What is the pleasure of the gentleman from Akbayan?
well, Mr. Speaker, I'm rising on a personal and collective privilege.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, for our guidance, matters of personal and collective privilege are about the rights, the privileges, the responsibilities, the obligations of the members of the House individually or the House collectively, Mr. Speaker. That is the nature of a matter of personal or collective privilege. May we know from the gentleman what is the matter of personal and collective privilege?
Well, Mr. Speaker, this issue, this very personal issue to me, involves our members of Akbayan in the tuna industry. I was absent yesterday because I have to attend to a very pressing need of our workers, some of which are detained in Indonesia. Their liberties have been curtailed, and the grievances that they have are very urgent and important, Mr. Speaker. I'm not here just on my personal note, but I am representing also the marginalized sectors of which Akbayan has stood for in the past.
Mr. Speaker, with all due respect to the gentleman, the matter does not qualify based on our precedents in the past. It's a matter of personal and collective privilege. And besides, Mr. Speaker, the floor leader has a pending motion. And under the rules, when we are about to take up urgent measures, Mr. Speaker, matters of personal and collective privilege cannot be entertained. So I would like to reiterate my motion,
Well,
Mr.
Mr.
Speaker,
Speaker.
that we take up bills on second reading.
Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker,
Yes, Congressman Villarin.
well, I understand that there are matters also of national import, Mr. Speaker. But here I'm talking about the lives of our fisher folks now detained in faraway Indonesia, the plight of almost 500,000 of our tuna fishing workers. And I personally believe, Mr. Speaker, that it is also due time that we have to give attention to them. And this is the only recourse that they have sought. And I am appealing that we have, just for this moment, Mr. Speaker, we have to give time to discuss this very urgent and very personal issue to me, Mr.
I
Speaker.
agree with the gentleman, Mr. Speaker. The plight of the fisher folk and the less privileged are very important to us, Mr. Speaker. But it does not qualify as a matter of personal and collective privilege. And besides, Mr. Speaker, we are about to take up a very important measure. We are about to take up the death penalty bill. We have been waiting for this bill, Mr. Speaker. We have to start the debate on the death penalty bill in this session, Mr. Speaker. So with the indulgence of the gentleman, may we proceed
Well, Mr. Speaker,
with taking up bills on second reading.
well,
Without,
Mr. Speaker,
without preempting the issue at hand, if
I'm
only to
raising a point of order,
ventilate,
Mr. Speaker.
the session
Mr.
is suspended.
I'm raising a point of order. My point of order, Mr. Speaker, is that when the motion for a personal and collective privilege is raised, then that should take precedence, Mr. Speaker.
It does not take. Palamigin natin. Dahil nakadibakit.
Pero no interpretation.
Wala naman magtatanong, di ba? Hindi naman kayo magtatanong.
Uwi na kayo.
Henry. Five minutes. You have to give it.
Person collective privilege, di ba wala naman na ito? Pero may mag-interpolate.
I'm expecting.
So papayagan siya.
Ayun,
Pero sana wala na.
pinapayagan lang natin yan. Okay, ito na.
Di ba nag-resume? Nagde-delay lang sila.
Wala pa si Mayor.
Pag binuksan mo kasi baka ito si Ayo. Kasi taga Mindanao. At saka sa workers mo.
Session is resumed. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, after conferring with the Honorable Villarin during the recess, Mr. Speaker, I move with respect to his matter of personal and collective privilege, Mr. Speaker, I move that the gentleman be given 5 minutes.
The Honorable Representative Tom Villarin of Party List Akbayan is recognized to deliver his privilege speech.
Well, thank you, your gracious speaker and your gracious floor leader, majority floor leader. Breaking the yoke of contractualization is easier said than done. It is deeply ingrained in several of our industries that thrive on the sweat of its workers who are paid starvation wages and are at the mercy of industry-wide practices of employers that connive to squeeze out the blood from our workers. Take the case of the tuna industry, a major export industry that is rooted in Mindanao, the home place of our president. General Santos City is home to some 200,000 workers in the tuna industry, based on estimates of a national labor center called Centro. Many years back, when tuna abound, some fishermen were able to have a take-home pay of about 12,000 pesos, or a measly $255, after a month of being out at sea. But no longer these days, as tuna catch is dwindling and a ban on per-sign method of fishing. On bad days, a month's journey at sea could yield even zero income with no Class A or sashimi-grade tuna catch. The precariousness of their jobs and slave-like conditions of our workers belie the wealth generated by the tuna export industry here, which benefits from zero tariff in export to Europe under the GSP Plus scheme. Gensan is said to produce 65% of the country's total tuna catch, with 6 of the country's 7 tuna canning firms located here. Government data also show Philippine tuna exports, mostly sourced from the city, have reached 147 million in the first quarter of 2014 alone, according to a Business World News report. Mr. Speaker, a case in point is the labor strike in the Citramina group of companies, the second biggest company in the tuna industry, involving all unfairly treated, terminated regular workers, which started on the 13th of November 2013 at the CMGC compound picket line in Barangay Tumbler, General Santos City, which until today remains unresolved. But the sacking of these workers is just the tip of the iceberg in what seems to be a massive violation of workers' rights that prevails the whole tuna industry. Citramina Group of Companies is the second largest seafood exporter of the Philippines. It has 5 interlocking corporations that mainly operate in one compound with one family owner through interlocking board of trustees under one management and control system of their supervisory and the rank and file employees. The 5 companies or corporations are as follows. First, the Citramina Seafoods Corporation. Second, Mami Gina Tuna Resources. Third, Pilfresh Corporation. Fourth, the Tuna Explorer Incorporated. And fifth, Citramina Property Holdings Incorporated. Behind its success, however, is a grim reality of slave-like work and systematic violations of labor standards, including safety and health standards. Of the 3,200 employees, only around 500 are regular employees. Around 2,000 of its fishers in the high seas are under the so-called Cabo system. I call them our sakadas of the high seas, akin to the plight of our sugarcane workers. The sakadas of the high seas are handline fishermen, as this method of deep-sea fishing is seen as more sustainable for the seas than the purse-seine fishing. This targeted fishing using a long rod is more likely to avoid juvenile bycatch. Younger fish are needed to propagate the sea's tuna population. To address labor concerns of our handline fishers, The DOLE, or the Department of Labor and Employment, after conducting a study in 2015, issued an order holding tuna exporting giants to account when labor violations are committed against these fishermen. It also mandates a fixed wage with added productivity-based incentives aligned with the mandated regional minimum wage. It likewise assures them of regular employee benefits such as social and health insurance and 13-month pay, among others. Longliners are contracted on commission with no safety and protective equipment, among others. Fishing boats are hardly inspected for compliance with occupational safety and health standards, as they are not considered quote-unquote workplaces according to labor standards. The DOLE order covering handline fishing are without teeth, absent the sweeping inspections needed across the tuna industry to determine the genuine financial capacity of so-called boat operators, most often locals who are simply tapped as leadmen or the cabo. Others are financed by the big tuna companies and taken in through joint venture arrangements. These operators need to be genuinely and independently selling fish cuts to companies to be considered legitimate labor contractors, instead of merely acting as agents whose operations are funded by and whose cuts are exclusively provided to by just one company. But, Mr. Speaker, to make matters worse, the Department Order 156-16, issued on December of 2015, namely the rules and regulations governing working and living conditions of fishers on board fishing vessels engaged in commercial fishing, was suspended pending the so-called consultations with the tuna industry. Another set of tuna workers are those employed in the processing of tuna cuts. This type of workers is hired through an in-house agency or under labor-only contracting setup. In the canning factories, work is non-stop with workers on a 12-hour shift to maintain the company's 24-hour operations. This is meant to boost productivity, production based on the tons of tuna processed each day. Workers are tasked to debone freshly caught tuna. Red meat is cut from the tuna's loin before it heads to different sections of the factory where it is packed in tin cans, cooked via steaming machines, cooled down, labeled, and shipped to buyers overseas. The workers employed usually come from the rural areas in communities straddling General Santos City and numbering close to 500,000, doing multifarious jobs in the canning factories, the shipbuilding and repair, factory machine repairs, and other jobs in support of the industry. Mr. Speaker, colleagues, in the Citramina case, it was reported by the union that every year it has one case of one death of its workers, or at least 4 deaths since 2011. All the families of these dead victims received no assistance from the company. At least, it is said that it has also 14 missing workers and more than hundreds who are now jailed in Indonesia for illegal fishing without any clear assistance from the company for several months now. When workers decided to reclaim their constitutional rights by establishing their union, The company reacted quickly by sacking 238 regular workers to bust their union beginning a week after they were registered with the DOLE. 78 of these workers have stood their ground and still are occupying the picket line in the company. But now, more workers are joining the fight, with another 104 of the previously dismissed workers joining the picket line. The case of Indonesia detaining our longline fishers for poaching is becoming a recurring incident. Some of our fishers are even mauled in detention. There are still a number of them in Indonesian jails. One, a boat captain, recently died in detention last December as the cost of repatriating them has increased and the DFA lacked funds for our longliners. It has to attend to parallel pressing needs of our OFWs in the Middle East. Another devious arrangement is the labor-only contracting scheme involving so-called labor cooperatives. Worse, the so-called labor cooperatives are the entities supplying workers to fishing canneries operating within the fishing industries, also under the labor-only contracting arrangement. Mr. Speaker, labor-only contracting in the tuna industry, as well as all other industries, is prohibited by law. In the specific case of the tuna industry, in a Supreme Court decision in Pure Foods Corporation versus the NLRC, this labor-only contracting among tuna workers was deemed illegal and immoral. DOLE came out with an administrative order targeting this illegal practice in the tuna industry. But sadly, as I've mentioned earlier, it has no teeth. And now, that department order has been repealed or abrogated. Mr. Speaker, Akbayan believes that we need to amend our half-a-century labor code dealing with contractual employment. Another blatant practice in the industry against workers is that of blacklisting. The person blacklisted, together with their close relatives, friends, cannot anymore find employment in all other companies in the tuna industry in General Santos City. This is highly discriminatory and violates the basic right to be employed and the state's mandate to give full protection to labor. Mr. Speaker, going back to my case in point, the Citramina group of companies does not only violate the rights of the workers, but also that of our consumers who should be afforded tuna, fish, and marine products in the local and global market, free from the blood and sweat of slave labor. These companies violate the labor standard by capriciously and indiscriminately implementing non-payment of overtime work, non-payment of the night shift differentials.
The gentleman is reminded to please wind up.
Of the 13-month pay. I'm winding up, Mr. Speaker, and I'm coming to my last point. Thank you for the reminder, Mr. Speaker. Mandatory provisions on social security and protection is grossly neglected and violated by the management of the company, especially of workers on the high seas. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, I urge this House, I urge Congress to undertake the following. First, investigate the tuna industry practices of labor rights violations, particularly that of illegal dismissal cases filed by the Citramina workers. Second, to file human trafficking cases against Citramina and other companies who send out sakadas of the high seas. Third, for the House to move for the lifting of the suspension of DOLE Department Order Number 156-16 as it pertains to the governing rules and of working and living conditions of longline fishers. Fourth, for Congress to review the EU GSP Plus membership of the Philippines, as violation of workers' rights constitute a wrongful policy that falls within the purview of such trade agreement. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, the immediate enactment of legislation amending our labor code with regards to labor-only contracting. Fighting inequality demands that we must respect and uphold the rights of our workers. Ending contractualization demands more from us than mere campaign promises. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we
Mr.
refer
Speaker,
the
Mr.
matter
Speaker,
raised by
Mr. Speaker.
the Honorable Villarin to the Committee on
Mr. Speaker.
Rules.
Majority Leader. There is a...
May we know what is the pleasure of the gentleman, Mr. Speaker?
I rise to interpolate the distinguished gentleman from Akbayan if he so yields.
Mr. Speaker, with all due respect,
Mr. Speaker,
the
I'm
Honorable
open to an
Lagman.
interpellation.
We have stated earlier, Mr. Speaker, that under the rules, a question of privilege shall not be entertained when we are about to take up a very important measure, Mr. Speaker. But we have given way to the gentleman, Mr. Speaker. We are about to take up a matter of great importance, Mr. Speaker. So let me point out the rule with the indulgence of the Honorable Lagman that a matter of personal and collective privilege is not debatable under our rules, Mr. Speaker.
Congressman Lagman.
Mr. Speaker, we have been witness to countless speeches here on personal and collective privilege, where debates ensued after the speech. So I would like to claim my right to interpolate the distinguished gentleman who has yielded.
Session is suspended. The session is resumed. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we take up House Bill number 4727, reported in Committee Report number 47 by the Committee on Justice, and kindly direct the Secretary General to read the title of the measure.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker,
Yes, Congressman Tienza.
Mr.
also
Speaker,
would
I have a
like-
pending motion, Mr. Speaker, and this is to take up a matter in the agenda, Mr. Speaker.
well,
This
Mr. Speaker,
occupies a high
my
position
motion-
in
my
our
motion is
priorities,
the-
Mr.
my
Speaker.
motion, Mr. Speaker, is the highest form. I'd like to cite a very personal and very collective. Lahat tayo involved before this body. Kung ayaw niyo makinig, let it be of record that you do not want to listen to something that questions the integrity of this body. It bothers me, and I'd like to point it out at the very least.
Session is suspended.
Pabayaan mo muna, pabayaan mo lang i-state ko, pare. Hindi, hold on it. namin pinapatulan yung mga bata. Mr. Speaker, Congressman Castro is already out of the hall. It is my pleasure to respond to you. Who's talking? Kailangan yun. They came here to support you. That's what I mean. Pero bakit hindi mo natawagin lahat para pumunta dito? Kanya dilaw itong folder ko. Ganun din yung akin eh. Yan na pare, enjoy.
Tapos, ito muna yata para ma-recognize mo tayo.
Yung sa akin dito, de Marte ako.
Session is resumed. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, before we proceed, I move that we refer the matter of personal and collective privilege
Speaker.
raised by the Honorable Villarin
Let
to
the Majority
Committee
Leader
on
finish.
Rules.
Majority Leader.
I would
Mr.
like to
Speaker.
reiterate my motion that we refer the matter raised by the Honorable Villarin to the Committee on Rules.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Yes, Congressman Atienza, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
What is the pleasure of...
There is an issue which bothers me personally, and it bothers a lot of us collectively. So kailangan po naman ilabas lamang namin ito upang mailagay natin sa ating records.
Is the gentleman rising on a matter of personal collective privilege?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman is recognized and has 10 minutes. Please proceed.
Salamat po. Mr. Speaker, 2 weeks ago, all the papers, national newspapers and national television carried a very serious item when it was said that 3 members of Congress, no, 2 in the beginning, 2 members of Congress are either drug peddlers or drug lords themselves. Yun po'y nakakabahala sapagkat andito po tayo nagtatrabaho, bigla na lamang tayong binansagan, 2 sa atin ay mga drug peddlers. Then after 1 week of ventilation in the papers and in media and in the internet, it was said, no, it is not 2, it's actually 3. So 3 members in our body are branded or noted or qualified as drug peddlers. Iyon po naman ay isang bagay na napakaseryoso na hindi natin pwedeng palagpasin. That's the reason why I was insisting to be heard. Because what I am saying now, I'm sure, is in the hearts of each member of Congress, present today especially. Ayaw nating pagdudahan tayo ng ating mga kababayan. Ayaw nating pagsuspetsahan tayo na meron tayong kinalaman sa droga. The drug problem, Mr. Speaker, is the biggest problem of the nation now, which has been destroying our economy, destroying the lives of every Filipino affected by the drugs. So we cannot stand by, and we cannot even work unless we help fight the drug problem in the country. And as we have been repeatedly saying, we wish President Duterte all the best. We will support him in any legislative requirement that his campaign against drugs will require. Because we realize that only him can lead a campaign that he is now leading to confront the issue of drugs in our society and in the Filipino family. Sumisira po talaga ng pamilya, buhay, kaluluwa ang bawat biktima ng droga. And I agree with him when he says he has no mercy in his heart when it comes to anyone cuddling drugs and in fact being a drug lord himself. Kaya yung po sinabing 2 sa ating mga miyembro ay kasali sa problema. Marahil sinasabing dahil congressman ay malawak ang kanyang operasyon. Eh di po ba nakakabahala yan? Lalo na nung sinabing, hindi 2, 3. So 3 of our members, according to them, are drug peddlers or drug lords themselves. We have to clarify this, Mr. Speaker. We cannot be tackling very important measures in this chamber unless this is addressed and confronted with the truth. Kailangan po namang malaman nating lahat kung tayo ay may kinalaman sa droga o wala. And in fairness to the 3 being pointed to now, let them defend themselves. Hindi pwedeng basta sasabihin na lamang na meron tayong mga miyembro na drug lords themselves without any opportunity to defend themselves. So this is the opportunity, Mr. Speaker. Let them be pointed out and let them defend themselves inside Congress and outside of Congress. At kung meron po silang kasalanan, magdusa sila. They do not deserve to be called representatives of the people and members of Congress if they have in any way any relation to the drug situation. So we support the President's campaign, although we do not agree with the extrajudicial killings that are happening every night. We do not agree with the vigilantism. We do not agree with the abuses being committed by the police right now on our people. We do not agree with the killings going on na walang kalaban-laban ang mga mamamayan, lalo na ang mahihirap. Kaya kailangan po kaliwanagan. Kailangan po katotohanan. Kailangan pong magsabi ang sino mang nagsabing mayroong mga congressmen na sila ay kasali sa problema ng droga at namamahagi ng droga sa kanilang distrito o kanilang probinsya? We have to answer that question, Mr. Speaker, because otherwise, now that the President and General Bato de la Rosa have even announced a suspension of the campaign, to which we do not agree. We cannot agree that this campaign can be brought on and off on the decision of one man. We agree with him that there is a problem. We support his efforts to curb and face this problem, so we cannot relent now on the campaign simply because now the President realizes malaki ang problema niya sa kapulisan. We have been shouting in this hall that the Philippine National Police must first be reformed. Ang problema natin ay corruption sa loob ng kapulisan. Ako naman ay natutuwa. If I can only call up the President, I'll congratulate him. Now you're accepting, Mr. President, that there is corruption. Sabi niya, at least 40% of our policemen are affected by corruption. Siguro mas malaki kaysa sa 40%, Mr. Speaker. Baka mga 60% ang affected by corruption. So we must address that problem, and I'm happy that he's now addressing it. But to suspend the campaign on drugs simply because General De La Rosa is going to clean up house does not merit our agreement. Hindi po pwedeng itigil po ang kampanya sa droga, subalit itigil nila ang extrajudicial killings. Itigil nila yung pinapatay ng mga vigilantes dahil hindi na natin malaman kung yan ay vigilante o yan ay simple case of murder na pinapatay ang isang nilalang nang wala po namang kalaban-laban. We have had enough of this. Now is the time for a sane approach on the drug problem. Kailangan po nating pagtulong-tulungan, and we are ready to help. In every way, we would like to help to see that our country is liberated from the clutches of a culture of death. Drugs by itself is death, Mr. Speaker. Anybody who gets affected by the drug situation, who takes drugs, is a dead man walking. Yung solusyon nila, napatayin pa ito, ay hindi po magbubunga ng maganda at tama. Sumunod po tayo sa tama, sa ating batas. Batas ng tao, batas ng Panginoon Diyos, na tayo ay rumespeto sa buhay ng bawat nilalang at hindi tayo maliligaw ng landas. Subalit, yung sabihin nilang titigil na ang kampanya sapagkat nais nilang maglinis ng hanay, hindi po tama yan, Mr. Speaker. That's practically saying that the drug situation is a whimsical, discretionary campaign na maaaring i-turn on at i-turn off. Hindi po. Kailangan po tuloy-tuloy ito. Now is the time for all of us to make our clear suggestion on how to do it even better. Pagtulong-tulungan natin. Ating isaayos ang kampanya, linisin ang hanay ng Philippine National Police at hindi sapat sabihin, we will fire all those involved with shenanigans. Bakit ganun ang salita? We will fire. Ang gusto ko pong marinig, ikukulong namin ang lahat ng mga pulis na nag-aabuso katulad ng mga gumawa ng pagpatay sa Koreano na kanila pong kinidnap upang kunan ng salapi. Yun po naman ay mga mukha ng kasalukuyan na alam natin ang problema ay nasa kapulisan, nasa piskalya, nasa judiciary, nasa detention centers. Yan ang mga problema, kaya lumalala ang problema ng krimen at ng droga sa ating bansa. Why are we closing our eyes to this, Mr. Speaker? It's time to accept the challenge. And this reminder of this representation intends to do just that. To wake up each and every one of us. The problem is one of a corrupt enforcement arm. We must clean them up. Kailangan pong linisin yan. Pero hindi po pwede po yung titigil muna tayo ng kampanya para linisin natin. Lahat yung kasangkot sa Koreano, ikulong na lahat yan. Litisin, bigyan ng araw sa korte at sentensyahan para makulong. Hindi po yung labas-pasok sa krami, Baka isang araw, wala na po dito yan. Sasabihin na lang, wala na sila, nakawala. Yan ang sinasabi namin, Mr. Speaker, that the situation today requires wisdom. Wisdom. Kailangan pong pag-aralan ng ating pinuno, no less than the President should use all the wisdom that God has given him so that he may effectively prevent the spread of the drug problem in our country. And to start that, name the 3 congressmen, Mr. President. We are asking you, in fairness to all the members of Congress, lahat tayong mga hinalal ng ating mga mamamayan, hindi pwedeng meron pong nakasabit diyang ulap na itim dahil binansagan tayo ay mga drug pusher din. Kailangan ibilad ng ating Pangulo kung sino itong mga ito at kailangan aksyonan ng ating Speaker and let us prosecute the 3 members of Congress if indeed there are 3 members. At kung wala po naman, let this institution, the last bastion, the first and last bastion of democracy in the land, to be free from all of this cloud of suspicion. Hindi po maganda tatalakayin natin ang parusa ng kamatayan, the reimposition of the death penalty, while all of us are suspects that we are also involved with the problem of drugs. Would we accept that, Mr. Speaker? So that's the very reason why I said, allow us to be heard before we even start discussing the death penalty. Because we cannot talk about anything, much less the death penalty in this chamber, unless that issue is cleared and clarified. Because then we can work with a clear conscience that what we're doing is not to favor the President, not to favor the Speaker. What we're doing is following our conscience that this is going to be good for the nation. Whether you are for or against the death penalty, we will have to respect each other's position if you are not tainted at all by the drug problem. So let all those who are cleared speak up, participate, and vote on this issue. Interpellate, argue for or against if you are not part of the drug problem. But if the suspicion lingers on, Mr. Speaker, I will continue to question the proceedings that we're doing because baka tatlo sa atin ay totoong kasali sa droga at tayo naman ay humahanap pa ng mas malaking kasalanan. Suffice it to say, being involved with the drugs problem is a major violation of our oath, violation of our laws. Again, uulitin ko, violation of the law of the land and the law of the Almighty. Mabuti sana'y tumugon ang kinauukulan. Sabihin kung sino itong tatlong to at sama-sama nating usigin upang malinis ang hapag bago tayo mag-usap ng tungkol sa death penalty. Maraming salamat po, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity that you have given us.
Mr. Speaker,
Maraming salamat.
Mr.
Majority
Speaker.
Leader?
before we recognize the gentleman and with the indulgence of the gentleman, may we greet the guests of the Honorable Edsel Lagman.
I thought you were going to read the 3 congressmen. But please proceed.
no, Mr.
To recognize the guests of the Honorable
They're here, we have
Congressman Edsel Lagman.
organizations against the death penalty. They're supposed to be here to listen to the debate on the death penalty, Mr. Speaker. First, in defense of human rights and dignity movement, Association of Major Religious Superiors in the Philippines, Task Force Detainees of the Philippines, Balay Youth and Adult Partners, Bagong Silang, CLC Kayumanggi or Church Labor Conference, Freedom of Death Coalition, Kanlungan Medical Action Group, Human Rights Online Philippines, Children's Legal Rights and Development Center, KNK Children Without Borders, Amnesty International Pilipinas, Akbayan, Sentro ng Nagkakaisang Manggagawa, Philippine Alliance of Human Rights Advocates, Ex-Political Detainees and Initiatives, Partido ng Manggagawa, Asian Federation Against Involuntary Disappearances, Partido Lakas ng Masa, Balay Rehabilitation Center Incorporated, Focus on the Global South, Families of Victims of Involuntary Disappearance, Sanggunian ng mga mag-aaral ng mga paaralang Loyola ng Ateneo de Manila, Gidon, Baliklaya Ateneo Christian Life Community, Kongresong Pagkakaisa ng Maralitang Lungsod, KNK Philippines, Children Without Borders, Philippine Action for Youth Offenders, Philippine Jesuits Prison Service, and the Commission on Human Rights of the Philippines.
Mangyaring tumayo ang lahat po ng nangalanang bisita ng ating kagalang-galang na Edsel Lagman. Welcome to the House of Representatives. Magandang hapon po sa inyo. Majority Leader.
And also, Mr. Speaker, we have the guests of the Honorable Rogelio Pacquiao. We have the Vice Governor of Sarangani Province. Yes, Mr. Speaker, we have the Vice Governor of the Province of Sarangani. Honorable Elmer de Peralta.
The guests of the Honorable better-looking fighting pride of Sarangani, please stand. Welcome to the House of Representatives. Majority Leader.
Also, Mr. Speaker, we would like to respectfully request for the acknowledgement of our newly appointed Presidential Legislative Liaison Office Undersecretary for the House of Representatives. We have Attorney Ryan Esteves and new PLLO Assistant Secretary Romulo Leo Arugay.
I invite the members to pay close attention to our new Undersecretary for PLLO. I wish you luck, Undersecretary.
May we recognize the
Majority
may we
Leader.
know what is the pleasure of the gentleman, Mr. Speaker?
What is the pleasure of the Honorable Gentleman from the 1st District of Northern Samar?
Mr. Speaker, will the gentleman from the Buhay Party List yield to a few questions on the subject matter of his statement of collective and personal privilege?
Congressman Atienza.
Mr. Speaker, I've always respected the gentleman from Northern Samar.
Please proceed.
So I would like to welcome, as I am welcoming, whatever he would like to ask on what we have stated.
Thank you, gentlemen from the Buhay Party List. I would like to commend, for the records, the matter that was brought up by the distinguished gentleman. In fact, during the past sessions, I was almost impelled to raise the same question. But since the Majority Leader stated in the media that the 3 members of the House in the narco list, which is with the Speaker, do not include any member from the Visayas, and I am from the Visayas, I thought that the members from the Luzon and from Mindanao would rise to defend their integrity as well as the reputation and integrity of the House. So I would like to congratulate the gentleman for rising this afternoon. Mr. Speaker, as stated by the distinguished Majority Leader, up for second reading is the measure to reimpose the death penalty. And I would like, Mr. Speaker, to clarify what seems to be the belief that when a motion is put by the Majority Leader for the second reading of a measure, a question of collective or personal privilege may not be raised. I would like to advert, Mr. Speaker, to Rule 10, Section 53, which is the rule on second reading. What is striking in this rule and section is a phrase. Which reads, subject to debate, quote, subject to debate and pertinent motions. For clarity, I would like to read a portion of Section 53, which is the rule on second reading and debate. It says, quote, a bill or joint resolution on second reading shall be read in full unless copies thereof have been distributed to the members. The bill or joint resolution shall be subject to debate and pertinent motions, unquote. The emphasis is pertinent motions. The question, therefore, is what are the pertinent motions that may be raised at any time when there is a call for second reading or when there is a debate on a bill or measure under second reading? I would refer to Rule 13, Section 98. This rule which is the precedence of motions, states at least 10 motions that are relevant not only during the debate or the second reading, but even before it. The majority leader was correct when he said that a motion on a question of privilege is non-debatable. Nevertheless, it can be raised and is not barred by any rule by being raised, simply because there is a bill or resolution on second reading. The reason is simple, Mr. Speaker. The reason is that the very essence of a question of collective or personal privilege is so clearly defined in Rule 13, Section 102. I read, quote, questions of privilege. Questions of privilege are urgent matters directly and principally affecting the duties, conduct, rights, privileges, dignity, integrity, or reputation of the House or of its members, individually or collectively. Subject to the 10-minute rule, every member has the right to raise a question of personal or collective privilege, unquote. So I believe there's no ambiguity in our rules, that when a member is recognized to raise a question of collective or personal privilege, he has the right to do so. In this particular case, the subject matter involves a statement made by the Speaker himself that 3 members of the House are in a narco list in his possession. He began by saying there were 2. Later he clarified and said there were 3. The majority leader impliedly before the media confirmed but said that none came from the Visayas. We cannot continue to legislate, Mr. Speaker, under a cloud of speculation. We cannot continue to discuss, especially a matter of national importance, such as the bill on the reimposition of the death penalty, when the House works under a cloud of speculation, when our fellow members from Luzon and the Visayas are under suspicion of being in the narco list. So I believe, Mr. Speaker, that this statement on the question of personal and collective privilege made by the distinguished gentleman from the Buhay party list is not only proper, but is also most eminent. Now, does the gentleman agree? And perhaps he has already so stated that we, even before we debate on the floor the bill that is candidate on second reading, we must first clench, we must first reaffirm the integrity and credibility of the House and of all its members. Does he agree?
Mr. Speaker, lahat po ng sinabi ng aking ginagalang na kongresistang aking hinangaan noon, 50 years ago, hinahangaan ko pa hanggang ngayon. Sapagkat he is a man who is not only well-versed on parliamentary rules, but on how to make a Congress function well. Tama po yung sinabi niya. Yung po naman ang aming tinuran, paano tayo magtatrabaho tungkol sa death penalty kung tatlo sa atin ay kasali sa problema na gusto nating labanan? Paano tayo magboboto? Paano tayo magdidebate kung marami sa atin ay suspetsang kasali sa problema? So we urge the Speaker, before we even tackle the death penalty proposal on the floor, he exposes the names of the three that he has mentioned, and let an investigation be done. Let the three defend themselves, and if guilty, let them suffer the consequences of their involvement with drugs. But otherwise, I agree with the gentleman with every word he said, obviously coming out from experience. Ito pong taong ito ay miyembro ng Kongreso ng ating bansa noong 1964 pa. Kwentahin po ninyo yun. Kaya yung sinabi niya ay bunga ng kaalaman sa tamang asal at tamang sistema ng paggawa ng batas. At meron siyang damdaming makabayan katulad po nating lahat. Nagagawa tayo ng batas ayon sa tamang paraan at hindi yung meron tayong ulap na madilim na tumatakip at humahabong na hindi nagbibigay liwanag sa ating kaisipan. We have to be free in our discussions, and the gentleman definitely will be heard, I'm sure, with his words, valuable in our deliberation on the death penalty. But, Mr. Speaker, I would like to continue on and on. I'd like to give the gentleman more space and more time, but I notice we are now less than 100 on the floor. We don't have enough people, enough members anymore. I move for adjournment, and let's continue tomorrow.
Mr. Speaker, with the indulgence of the gentleman, before we part ways, can we take up one administrative matter and we just greet some of our guests, Mr. Speaker?
The session is suspended. Session is resumed. Yes,
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, although my counters, who are strategically located, have sent me a message that we no longer have a quorum, but since the majority floor leader has made his appeal that there are certain matters that we would have to take up for the sake of those being affected, then I withdraw my motion temporarily until the important matters are taken up.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, before we part ways, may we greet the guests of the Honorable Anthony Bravo and Honorable Sabiniano Canama. They are the leaders from various cooperatives, Mr. Speaker.
The guests of the Honorable Sabiliano and whose guests again, Majority Leader?
The Honorable Sabiniano Canama and Anthony M. Bravo.
Welcome to the House of Representatives. Magandang hapon po. Yes, Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, in accordance with the rules governing inquiries in aid of legislation, I move that we refer the following House resolutions to the respective appropriate committees. House Resolution 693 to the Committee on Banks and Financial Intermediaries. House Resolution 694 to the Committee on Overseas Workers' Affairs. House Resolution 712 to the Committee on Games and Amusements. House Resolution 715 to the Committee on Games and Amusements. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Hearing no objection, the motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we adjourn session until tomorrow, February 1 at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Session is adjourned until tomorrow, February 1, 4 p.m.